Okay, good. Holding at a Mishnah on Kuf Lamed Hey Amid Beis 135. 135b. Okay. Misha Mace, I'm sorry. I'm rushing over here. I have a flight. So we're learning in the schus of our learning we should have. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And the schus of our learning we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Learning the Nishmas of Golda Basra Binyamin Nishanas Ben Betzian and Refuah Shleima for David Ben Sarah and Gedali Getzel. Yes, it's better. Whoever else needs Refuah Shleima for the hostages should be safe. Okay, the Mishnah says Misha Mace, someone that passed away. And sure enough, there's a will. And the will is tied to daitki is another word for a will. And it's tied to his leg. Now that's a proof that he's the one that made the will. It's not like this is typical that people show up after the death with some will, something forged. So this is not forged. This definitely came from him. It's tied to his leg. They find it on this.
Oh, so the will is tied to his leg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it's coming from him. It's not coming from some person that shows up, later on and says, "Hey, I have a will." So, it doesn't matter. It doesn't help. Now, what's happening here is that there's a special, unique type of transaction that someone can do on his deathbed. Where he says, "I want this to go to so and so," and he doesn't have to make a kinyan. The matna shchivmira, a gift of someone on his deathbed, but it doesn't work with a written document. The written document has to be transferred over to someone. There's a concept of transferring property. One of the kinyanim of property is giving over the document. So, but that document doesn't work after he dies. And the whole takana of the matna shchivmira is only if he says it verbally. So we don't have the verbal transaction. All we have is a document. The document doesn't work. It's that simple. All right. Okay. So now it says we're on 135b at a Mishnah.
Zika Balach. Why do we have to give that answer? Why would you say anyone could say this?
It doesn't work. We're saying even if it's tied to his life. It's not about anyone else. It's about this guy. We find it and it's given to some person. Yeah. Zika Balacher. If there's a document that says in it that it's being given. I think what this Mishnah means is that it's being written to one person, it's being given to someone else, and he's telling him to acquire it on his behalf. So then, which obviously that could work, it's a schus. Bein min hayarshin, bein she'eino min hayarshin, since it's considered a gift, it's not considered an inheritance, right? Talking about someone that's gifting, then dvar kayam, then it works. He doesn't even have to give a document. It's of course if there's a document, he just has to say this and it works. There's a document, it doesn't hurt. It would only make it better. Basically, what we just learned is that it's possible for a document to mess things up if he's relying on the document to be the transaction. That type of transaction doesn't work. But if it's just if it was done verbally, says I want so and so to take my Rolls Royce or something, so that would be given. Or if it's in a document and it's handed to someone, that also works. What's considered a daitiki, which is this type of transaction where it's a gift, but it's only taken later on, and it doesn't have to say. You see, there is a way of giving a gift, the matnas bari, that only takes effect after the person dies. That is, he tells him, it's given to you now, but he can't use it till after the death. That's how that's how a healthy person has to give a gift if he wants that to happen. The way we assume the way that works is that the principle is owned by the recipient, but all the benefits of that are still going to the person, to the gifter, the one that's giving it. Conditions, stipulations sound similar. It's a stipulation in who's getting the fruits. He's giving it as a gift, but he can't eat the fruits till later. That's the right. So here we're saying that no, the whole gift only takes place after he dies, and you don't have to say mihayim that you're taking it from now. Now, how does that work? That he just we have a conversation now, and everything just takes effect later. Like how does that work? So it's kol shekasaba. You have to write in it that this should be established and continue. That's that the word daitiki is a what's it called when you put words together? Not a compound. Compound just means you have two words like hyphenated. It's a when you condense the words.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Something. Right. I'm having a senior experience. Senior moment. Okay.
Hold on, yes, my secretary. Siri, what word is used? Hey Siri, what word is used when several words are combined to one?
We're asking Siri.
Right? Sense for your reference or for as much. These are called compound words. Whoa.
Compound words? Oh, okay.
Or blend words.
No,
No, that's not what I meant.
there's a fancy word for it. I think it's portmanteau.
Similar word is portmanteau. It is
Portmanteau.
also a compound word, but the sense is it is deliberately constructed as a neologism. That might be the word. In contrast to the words listed that are compounded due to usage. Who cares?
Okay. Okay. Like Yitzi would say, Kelly knows.
This all proves what the kids say today. Why do we need to learn anything? We have computers.
That's right. You have to know what to ask. Yeah. Okay, so Ezehi Matana. So the Gemara just asked, what's a daitaki? And we said Date Lamekam. It's this what was that called? Portmanteau. Okay. And Ezehi Matana.
What just happened?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Has a will, but this will is actually I don't know how you differentiate between a gift or an inheritance. It's something that is written. I guess it's worded a certain way.
So we're not exactly dividing between a will and an inheritance. We're dividing between the will and the gift that's given
When he's alive.
when he's healthy.
He's helpful.
Both of them are going to behave like a will. One of them is when he's
So a shuvim is not considered healthy, obviously.
right.
So
Right. Right. So if he writes in a tatela mekam, then it acts like a will. And if he writes a different expression, then it will act like a matnas bari.
Could a shvimera gift? Or it's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're learning, is that the Shchivmira is able to make a statement, and because we don't want him to lose his mind when he's worried about his how his assets are going to be distributed, Sadie said that whatever statements he makes are in effect,
Is that something
even
we'll
without
find
an
out
official
later?
transaction. I'm sorry.
Yeah, something we're going to find later.
Yeah,
or is
well,
that
that's the underlying theory of all of this, is that the words of the Shchivmira are accepted. So what would be a matnas bari is kol shekasaba me'ayem alachem isa. If he's giving it as a healthy person, then he has to say that he's giving it from today. And what that means is that the principal, like let's say the land, is given today, and the fruits he's still going to eat until after he dies. Kol shekasaba me'ayem alachem isa. The Gemara says, "Ela me'ayem alachem isa hu dehavim matana me'achshav le'ev matana." The Gemara is asking over here, you mean a matnas bari only works if he says, bari means healthy. A gift of a healthy person only works if he says from today till after he dies, and after he dies. Why does he have to say after he dies? Just say from today, and it's a regular gift. It says Rabaya Hachikamar. Rabaya says, what would be a case? Do you have the pencil? What would be the case of a healthy person's gift that behaves like a matna shchivmira, where it only takes effect, thank you, after he passes away? That would be if he says mehayem alachem misa. Okay. Yosef Rabba bar Rav Huna Sadra de Bei Rav. Rabba bar Rav Huna, sounds like Rav Huna's son, is sitting in the entranceway. Achsadra is like a Florida room, in the open area in the yeshiva of Rav. Yosef Kamar Mishmid Rabbi Yechon. He's saying something in the name of Rabbi Yechon. If a person on his deathbed says, Kisvu to Numan al-Plaini, write and give the document of this amount of money to so-and-so. Umes, and then the person died. We don't write it, we don't give the document. Actually, we don't write it and give the money, probably. Maybe he wanted him to get it with the document. And since the document doesn't work after he dies, I'm not sure exactly why he should be so specific that he wants the transaction to take place only with the document. But for whatever reason, that's what he said. He said he wants it to be done with the document. And if the document wasn't transferred before he passed away, then it's ineffective. So because that was clearly his direction, so we can't do it. He passed away. Amalu Rabbi Lazar, it says to Rabbi Yechanan, is Daruba. Should be careful about this, because that's actually the halacha. If he wouldn't have said the document, if he just would have said Tnuman al-Plaini, then that would have taken effect. But because he added in, write it, so now it needs to work with the writing, and it's not going to work. Rav Shizvi says, we had Rav Shizvi not too long ago, says Rabbi Lazar Amra, it was really not Rabbi Yechanan that said this, and comes along Rabbi Yechanan, it's not Rabbi Yechanan that said this, and comes along Rabbi Lazar and tells Rabbi Yechanan how that's the halacha. It's the other way. Rabbi Lazar Amra, Rabbi Lazar said it. Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. He's a friend, student of Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan is the teacher, Rabbi Lazar is the student. In the last way of saying it, it was Rabbi Yechanan that made a statement, and came along Rabbi Lazar and says that, yeah, you should be careful with that. That's the halach. No, that's Rabbi Lazar ben Shemua. This is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. It's 200 years later. I'm sorry? Maybe you're thinking of the student of Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai, which was Rabbi Eliezer. That's even before. So Rav Shizvi says it was the opposite. It was Rabbi Lazar that said it, and came along Rabbi Yechanan and said that's the halacha. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says Kavasei de Rav Shizvi mistaber. It's more logical the way Rav Shizvi said it, that it was Rabbi Elazar that made the statement, and come along Rabbi Yochanan and supported it. Because if you say Rabbi Elazar is the one that said it, it's Rabbi Yochanan. So we need Rabbi Yochanan to say that what my student said is correct. Ali Amra, it's Rabbi Yochanan Amra. But if you say that Rabbi Yochanan is the one that said it, it's Rabbi Elazar, Lasude, Aled, Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi. Does Rabbi Yochanan need the support of Rabbi Elazar, his student? So it makes more sense to say it where Rav Shizbi said it. Vai Tashma, we even have a Vai Tashma de Rabbi Elazar Amra. I'll prove it to you. Come and listen to see that Rabbi Elazar is the one that said it. The Shalach Ravin Mishmei de Rabbavo. Ravin, one of these travelers that would bring halachas, he actually sent this halacha. He said, usually it's he traveled and he brought it here. He sent it. He said, "Have a yaidin, you should know, Shalach Rabbi Elazar l'geila mishum Rabbeinu." That Rabbi Elazar said a halacha in the name of Rav. He's telling them Rabbeinu. Rabbi Elazar originally was from Bavel. Learned by Rav. Then he went to Rabbi Yochanan. And so he sends them back that I have an old teaching of Rav. He sends them back to Bavel. He says, you should know that Rav said, that if there was a person on his deathbed that he said, write it and give this amount of money to so and so, and then he died. We don't write it and give it. Maybe he was being very particular about how he wants it to be given. He wanted it to be given with the document. And there's no document after his death, so therefore we can't give it. Rabbi Yochanan says, now the Rashbam says that Rabbi Yochanan isn't arguing here. He's just saying, tibadik, that you have to look at how it was said. You have to examine, investigate what was the language that was used by the person when he said that it should be written and given. Mighty body. What do you mean? What are we checking out? What are we investigating? Yasser Rabdimi Aman Rabdimi came. It's interesting because Ravin came later than Rabdimi. When Rabdimi came, but this was sent first. This was sent. It wasn't when he came. That's why Shalach Ravin. When Rabdimi came, he said, he said two things actually. If a person wrote a will, and then he writes another will, this is these guys that they keep telling you, if you don't call me on my birthday, you're not getting the what's it called. So he writes a new will. They forgot about his birthday. So yesterday. So which one is effective? So it says the second one nullifies the first one. The second will nullifies the first one. It's all about the date on the will. Which one is the updated one? Right. It's always the last one. Shriv Mira. Had a great aunt. Used to walk me. She was never married. We would go over to visit. She would walk me around the house asking, "What would you like in my will?" I was like a little kid. I didn't know what she wanted. She had like decorative plates, like on top of, china cabinet. That plate. was talking to like a 5-year-old. Like, what do you want from me?
Picture of a Mickey Mantle that says rookie.
She kept chocolates in a drawer. I would have said that maybe the chocolates, Okay. If a person is on his deathbed and he says he should write and give this amount of money to so-and-so, and then he died, and here we're going to see what Rav Dimi says, how this supports us. It's the second statement that we're interested in. So, Royan, we see how he said it. If the fact that he said that write it up, he's saying it in a way, I'm not just giving this to you, but I even want it written up. This is not just a regular statement. I want this, transcribed. So then, kaisman, then we actually give it. Imlav, but if it's not because he's trying to strengthen it, he's doing it because it's more of a business thing. Not he says I want it written up and this, but not it's not that I'm giving it to you, plus I'm going to write it up. It's just write it and give it. So then, in Kreisman, then we can't write it because maybe it was very particular about how he wants it given, and it's not going to work after he passes away for it to be written up because there's no document. You can't give it can't transfer something in a document after the death. Right? Well, basically, if the transfer was done without the document, and the document is just a support, it's just a proof, then fine. But if the transfer is being done with the document, so you have to see the wording of the way he said it. No, it's nothing. It's nothing. That's the chiddush over here. That because he put in all those details, so then the person loses out. Masav Rabba Bar Mamal. Rabba Bar Mamal has a question. Let's say a healthy person says, I want you to write this up and give this money, $100, to so-and-so, and then he dies. We can't write it up. Now, Rabbi Bar Mama is quoting this price that says a healthy person. But if it was a sick person on his deathbed, then we can write it up. You told me before you can. Well, actually, you told me you have to investigate. So Rabbi Bar Mama asked the question, and he also explains it. The miyapes koichai. When would we say that you write it up? In other words, like this: by a healthy person, even if he says that I'm giving it to you as a gift, and as a support for that, and as a proof for it, we're gonna have it written up. He's miyapes koichai. He's doing it in a way to strengthen the gift. The gift is being given without the document, but nevertheless, it doesn't work. But by the Shchiv Meirah, such a case will work. By the person on his death. If it's because I want it to be transferred with the document, then it doesn't work by either of them. But if it's miyapes koichai, if he wants it to be transferred without the document is just a support, then it works for the Shchiv Meirah, it doesn't work for the health. Because by a healthy person, you need a kinyan. And if you want to use the document, he already died, you can't use it. The transfer of the document could be a kinyan. Property. But he already died and he can't use the document after that. It's a healthy person who died. It was not his deathbed. He died because something, some meteor fell from the sky. He died.
If he had witnesses that heard him say.
Yeah, the witnesses don't you can't do a transfer because he just said I lied. You know, it's not a real transfer. It has to be click here, and don't press
Because
backspace. What's a case of miyapes kecha where he's only strengthening it, but the transaction is taking place just by his words? Similar to what Rav Chisda answered in a different question. There's a Gemara later on. It's talking about if a Shchiv Meirah writes all his possessions to someone else. So even though a kinyan was made, but nevertheless, if he gets healthy again, he can take it back. That's this idea about a Shchiv Meirah, that if he gives everything, he can take it back. Because we see it was only because he thought he was dying, but he ends up recovering, so he can take it back. If he dies, then the person receives it. Now, the problem is there's a document. It was written in a document. Maybe you need the document only for. So Rav Chisda came along and said about this. He says, or if there's a kinyan, he said he wants it with a kinyan, or they made a kinyan. It says afal pisha kasav kinyan b'achman mishchinra. Yeah. So Rav Chisda answered this that he says v'kanina minei meisif al matnasa da, that the kinyan is in addition to the gift. Because the gift is already valid on its own, but we're even going to make a kinyan to make sure there's no question. So then that's not limiting it, that's only an addition. So hachinami damar afkis v'chismo. Also over here, what we're talking about Why is it going to work? Because he says we're even going to write it and sign it and then give it to him. So that doesn't limit it. That's just telling him I don't want anyone ever to contest this. So then that's going to be effective. It's my Rav Yehuda Mishmol, the statement from Rav Yehuda Mishmol, halacha kaisin v'naisin, and halacha is that you do give it in such a case. If it's a case of miyakas kaiche, like Rabbi Yochanan said, that tibadek, right? You have to investigate to see what the language was. A lot of times quotes Rav Nachman as the halacha. Says halacha, the halacha is in the name of Rav Nachman that if you investigate how the person said it, if he says it like this, then it's considered valid. A new Mishnah. Here we're talking about a person that's about to get married, but he has children from a previous marriage. So this is a prenup. He doesn't want his new wife to take away the inheritance from his first children, or her ksuba. He doesn't want her ksuba to be a lien on the inheritance that the children from his first wife are going to get. So what he does is he writes the property over to his children before he gets married. And that document will precede the ksuba. So, but he still wants to live. How's he going to live? He can't give all his property. So what he does is, he writes that I'm giving it to you from today and after I die, which means that I'm going to live in it as long as I live. But the property is already yours. Like we've explained this before. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that he has to say mehayoim, say from today, in order for it to be effective, because he has to get it in to be effective before the ksuba is written. Rabbi Yossi says in Tzarech, you don't have to write mehayoim. We'll see the opinion of Rabbi Yossi in a moment. Yeah. An inheritance. If the father passes, it does go automatically. Give me an example of different types of ownerships. But tell me.
Usually, when somebody passes here, the family has to go to court and take the estate.
So what happens is that it is inherited as an estate, and then it has to be divided up. So machlekes, when it's divided up, what they're considered, are they considered purchasers, right? Considered, we say yesh brera, was it always theirs as like retroactive, or is it considered a sale or something for tax purposes? It is relevant, but
ownerships.
Oh yeah. That's a different story. Yeah.
So somebody came to Rav Shoket in Toronto, told him he was going to get into a second marriage like this. And he asked him for marital advice. He wanted to know how to get along. And Rabbi Shoket said the only advice he has is get a prenup. The second marriages, he always told people, make sure there's a prenup, like here.
Practical.
Yeah.
Right. So, the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi says it's not necessary to write mehayim. We'll see why. Someone writes his property over to his son, but he wants him to take it after he dies. So, the father can't sell the property anymore. Too late. He has given the principal to the son. The son can't sell it because the father's using it. Under the father, the son can't. He doesn't get it yet. He only gets it after he dies. Macharav. Let's say the father makes the sale. He sells it. Well, then the purchaser, can use it until the father dies. Then it's not the father's anymore. Then it's the son's. Macharaben, if the son sells it, he had no right to sell it until the only thing he owns is when it's going to become his. So the purchaser can't use it until the father dies, and then it becomes the purchaser's. Yeah. It's funny how it said Eini Yachol Limkar, and then it says, but if they did, it actually works, just not 100%, right? It says that you can't, and then it says, but it does, but it's effective, right?
It's really, they say it's something like the future.
Selling the future. The Gemara now says, why is Rabbi Yehuda even allowing? It says, if you write Mehayem Alachamisa, then it's considered that it's transferred over to the sons. Yeah.
Like a reverse mortgage. People that enjoy the property so they pass and then the bank takes over.
Is that, I don't know, what is the reverse mortgage?
The owner of the house has to pay for the taxes and the insurance, but they don't have to make monthly payments to the bank. And then those monthly payments get added up. And then when the person passes, the family, if they want to keep the house, they have to pay back the bank what is owed to them. If not, the bank keeps the house.
This was in exchange for getting money out. That's why they do it. You do reverse
or
mortgage
some-
because you want money
Or
from
some,
their
or
equity.
some people just buy like that. They don't want to have a big monthly payment. To buy with the worst money, as long as you're giving enough money down.
I know, but then you're giving them
So,
and then
so
you're
just to
taking back
clarify,
money.
if you buy a house for less than, you don't, if you don't pay the full value of the house, you take out a mortgage. You don't pay the mortgage. Bank will allow you to live there, and you just owe them the mortgage until the.
Reverse mortgage basically.
Why would the bank do that?
But
Don't they
only,
want the money coming in
but
regularly?
they only do that like to
Oh, it's for older people.
Because they're buying down their house.
basically. They let the people live in there at low cost for the remaining years, and then the bank takes over the house.
Okay. So we're asking, how does Mayem Alachamisa work? It doesn't work by a get. Hatanan Mayem Alachamisa get vein a get. If someone gives a get to his wife, he says it's yours. I'm giving this to you today and after I die. We say, well, that's a questionable get. We call it get vein a get. It's a get and it's not a get. We don't know if that works. We say maybe he wants to give it today. Maybe he's trying to retract and saying, I only want to give it after I die. And after he dies, there's no get. So then it's ineffective. So, if the person dies, they have to do chalitza. You can't do yibum. You have to do chalitza because maybe it wasn't a good get. And he's still married. And he has to do yibum or chalitza to the brother. You can't do yibum because maybe it was a get. And then you're not allowed to marry the sister, the brother-in-law, right? So then it's prohibited. So you can only do chalitza. And now you're telling me that Hayem Alachamisa works on on monetary things. And here, by the get, it doesn't work. The Gemara says also, over there we had a doubt. Was when he said May Hayem Alachamisa, is he saying that it's a tanah, that I am giving it to you now, it's effective now? But what does he mean that it should only be Lachamisa? No, im amas. It's effective now. It's a tanah means if I die. He's going skydiving or bungee jumping, and he says if I die, this get should be effective now. So it's a tanai, which means it's effective now. That's okay, even though it's retroactive, right? When the condition is fulfilled, it goes back to that, which would be a good get. Or or maybe it's chazara. Maybe he didn't mean to say from now. He switched. He said hayayim ulachamisa, and after I die. Maybe the second statement is retracting from the first one, and he thinks it's supposed to take effect after he dies, but we know that that doesn't work. Yeah, exactly. But over here, if we have a way of explaining a statement that's contradictory, then we're going to make it work. But because over there, we don't really have a way of saying this contradictory statement, but by us we do, because by a monetary thing, we can say, the principle is taking today, but the usage of it that you get after the death. So because it fits perfectly into the words, so we're going to put it in the explanation that works. So monetary thing, we can divide that up between the usage and the principle. by the get, we're going to have to say, is it this way or is it that way? It's not both of them. Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to use the word mehayim. You don't, when you're giving this type of gift, you don't have to say from today. Rabba bar Avua cholash. Rabba Avua was ill. Allah Gabi Rav Huna Rav Nachman. Rav Huna Rav Nachman go to visit him. Rav Nachman was his son-in-law, and Rav Huna Rabba bar Avua I think was associated with the Rish Galusa, or maybe it was the Rish Galusa. So it's an important person. Amar lei Rav Huna le Rav Nachman. Rav Huna says to Rav Nachman, "Boy minei, ask from Rabba bar Avua, halacha Rabbi Yossi and halacha Rabbi Yossi. Is the halacha like Rabbi Yossi or not? You know, do you have to say the word mehayim in order for this to be effective?" Amar lei, so he says to him, "Time to Rabbi Yossi la yadana. I don't even know Rabbi Yossi's logic. Halacha boy minei, and now you want me to ask him what the halacha is? First, I should do my homework before I start asking these questions." Amar lei, at boy minei, hi halacha ilai. You just ask. The timer, you want to know the reason? No, I mean, I'll tell you later. Okay. Boimine, he asked of him, Amalei. So Rabbi Baravua says, Hachi Amar Rav, says in the name of Rav, Halacha Rabbi Yossi, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, we're going to pass like Rabbi Yossi. Basra Daf, after they went out, Amalei. So Rav Huna tells him, Hainu time of Rabbi Yossi. Told you I was going to tell you the reason. This is the reason. If you have a date in the document, and you say that it's going to be effective later, why'd you put a date in it? Just put in the date that it's going to be effective. So the reason why you put a date, you said that you're writing today, is because you're trying that it should be effective today with the condition of later, or that it should be effective today as the principle, and the usage of it will be effective later. But once there's a date, Rabbi Yossi holds that. I guess Rabbi Yossi holds that a document would be good without a date. That Taisus and Ksubas discusses. But if it's a get, then you need a date in the get. Anyway, I think it gives some answers over there about you could have put a date. Just put in the month. You don't have to put exactly the day. You could make a document kosher without having the exact date. Anyway, Rabbi Yossi is saying, why do you put the date in, the exact date? That's in order to say that it's taking effect now. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi.
When Hashem promised Abraham, the Zeracha will give all the Eretz Yisrael, do you have the word Hayam in there?
Mehayim?
I'm just trying to remember the bus.
I don't think so. Zaracha etnana.
So even though we said that day, it was for the future, and that's why Lot has no clue. Something like that when they made it.
But even if not, even if it said Mehayim, but you still can't start using it and say, but when he's going to give it to me retroactive, you can't use it until.
Right. That was the claim against, I think, the books.
Right. The shepherds.
Consider there's two documents exactly the same, but we have to go by the date.
Right.
And if there's no date, and one thing,
Yeah.
Or maybe divide in the middle.
Yeah. So that's Taisa's question. How does Rabbi Yossi work with the document without a date? Because Rabbi Yossi is basically saying the fact that you put a date in, that means that that's what you meant. You meant to say Mehayim. Yeah. He has some ways out. Yes, and Tanya Nami Hachi was also taught in a brayso of Yossi Eimer. You don't have to say Mehayim from today. The date that's already in the document means that it's taking effect today, retroactively. The way the Rashbam wants to learn from the following Gemara is that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you have to say Mehayim alachamisa. In order to be effective today. Let's say they made a kinyan. So do you still have to write Mehayim? Or maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds that the kinyan works just as good as mehayim. You tell lift up this thing. We made a kinyan, so that's good. Good as mehayim. It's good as mehayim. Yeah. So he's asking, would Rav Yehuda also require mehayim? Now this is a problem that the Gemara gets into, discussing Rav Yehuda. That's not the halacha. Rashbam has to deal with that. Amalei baknain tzarech. If they make a kinyan, you don't have to write mehayim. Rapapi says ika aknaisa de tzarech, ika aknaisa de lei tzarech. It depends. It depends. Sometimes the kinyan is effective, and you don't have to write mehayim. Sometimes it's not. Akniya v'kanina minach. If it says in the document that go and acquire, and then at the end of the end of the document you summarize on the bottom everything that took place. It says, and we made a kinyan. He says that the person said go and acquire, and then on the bottom in the summarization it says, and we made a kinyan. Leit tzarech. Then it's not necessary. You're showing that the kinyan was made, and that's good enough. Kanina mine b'aknaya. If you just said we made a kinyan, and then he says that the person said go and acquire, so the opposite order, and tzarech, then you have to say mehayim. Yeah.
I thought that all these contracts had to have a date to prevent fraud.
Yeah. Rabbi Yossi is saying that that date is more than just that date to prevent fraud, but that date is also using to say when it's taking effect retroactively. Yeah, but if you look at that Taisvis right at the first page in Ksubas, he asked the question based on it was about a get, that a get without a date is puzzle, and he says one of his options there is that when you give a very general date, but you don't give the specific date. You don't give the date of the day. You just give the month of the year. Yeah, that it would be valid, but it won't have Rav Yosef. What Rav Yosef is saying, the Mehayim aspect. It's only when you add in the actual day that it has. That's one of his answers. He has another answer that I don't remember.
How can you bring the riot from the date that's there isn't Roy until she accepts it? That's the date.
No, he's giving it to her right now.
Oh, what about?
But he's saying that it's only effective, or with the shliach.
But the shliach doesn't get there for 2 months.
Right.
So doesn't get to 2 months later, even though the date was totally different.
Yes. What do you do about that?
You say it doesn't hold the point of Rabbi Yossi.
I'm not sure. I don't remember how it works with the shliach. What do you do with the date? How does it?
I thought the date was just when it was
written. The date was just when it was written, but she's only divorced when she gets it. Yeah. Sign and deliver, right? Maskefla Rav Chanina Misura. Rav Chanina Misura asks. Rav Papi says that there's a difference. He says Miyaka Midi Danan Yadidin Vasifri Yadi. 1 second. The sages don't know this distinction, but the scribes realize. The scribes know what's really happening here, that if they write it like this, it's effective immediately. If they write it like that, it's not effective. They actually asked, and sure enough, they knew. They asked the scribes of Rava, and they knew as well. He says that it doesn't matter which order was written. Go in and make a kinyan, and we made a kinyan, or we made a kinyan and go and make a kinyan. That doesn't matter. The only difference is if he says, where's the machlekes over here? If you have to say mehayim, that's going to be, if he says this is a sikarin, duchran means sikarin, just a transcription of what took place. If the document just says that this is a transcription of what took place, so then that's where it has to say mehayim. There's a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef. It has to say mehayim. Amar Rav Kana Misal Shmait Kameder Rav Zvid Minardoi. Rav Kana says, I said this over in front of Rav Zvid from Nardoi Varmalei. That's the way you taught this. That there was this conversation, and Anan, however, we learned it a little different, that it was just a statement. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav says in the name of Rav Nachman, you had it that it was a question. Rav asked Rav Nachman. He said, Rav says in the name of Rav Nachman, that if there's a kinyan, you don't have to write either way, you don't need to write it. The only time you do need to write it is there's the machlekes if you have to write it is if he says that we're just making a just to make sure we don't forget what took place. What's the word that you use?
A recording of
A recording of proceedings. That's a good word. A recording of proceedings. That's when we'll have to write machlekes if you have to write
Scroll says
testament. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Okay.